Hello, this is Dan, and this is going to be a recap of our Sunday lesson on June 28, 2026, a couple days ago. And what I'm going to do, since this is a video, I'm going to break up what we talked about on Sunday because I don't want to talk about all the topics that show up between verse 19 of Genesis 25 and verse 34. There's a whole lot of things going on. But we covered the entire thing on Sunday. So if you don't mind if I break this up a bit. I might make 2, maybe even 3 out of it. Let's see. Not really sure yet, 100%. But anyway, we are in Genesis 25 and 19. Now we're starting with this verse. And these are the generations of Isaac. The Bible's moving on away from the other sons of Abraham, which were of Keturah and Hagar, and now the only son of Sarah, the miracle child, the generations of Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham begot Isaac. Okay. Now the mother's not mentioned like it was with Hagar and Keturah because the story is just so well known. It's not necessary to put it here. Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah to wife, the daughter of Bethuel the Syrian, of Paddan Aram, and the sister to Laban the Syrian. So he was 40. I want to talk about 40 here. 40 is a number in the Bible which is rather significant, as it turns out. 40 is the number of transition. That's my way of looking at it, because the notable 40s, we'll just mention a couple, that's all, we don't have to stay with it, but the flood of Noah was 40 days and 40 nights of rain. And the world was flooded, and it went from one kind of a world to a different kind of a world. Because the people in the earlier world were living very, very long, and after the flood they started to diminish quite a bit in length of time, plus man was now required to do capital punishment for murder. God wanted, if someone gets murdered, then the murderer is himself put to death. So that happens, and other things change. But anyway, that's a transition, that's my point. In the Exodus, we have the Israelites transitioning from Egypt to Canaan. It takes them 40 years. In the days of Jesus, he goes from being a citizen of Israel, workaday man, living in Nazareth. Nothing said much about him at all there at that time, at least from past the age of 12 till 30 when he appears to Israel. But he spends 40 days in the wilderness being tempted of the devil. He's transitioning from being the citizen to being the prophet, who will be later then the victim set up as the lamb sacrificed for man's sins. So that's a big transition, those 40 days. So Isaac he transitions from single life to married life, which many baby people do when that happens. So I think the 40 there is, again, representative of Christ. So we have Rebekah is mentioned here and who she is. She's the daughter of Bethuel. Now, Bethuel would have been Isaac's first cousin. And since she's the daughter of his first cousin, she's the first cousin once removed, because the child of a first cousin is once removed. Because it's not quite a second cousin, because that's a different kind of way you relate to people, your grandparents. But she's first once removed. So she's closely related to him somewhat, not quite like Abraham. His father was with Sarah, who was his half-sister. But she's still pretty close. Perhaps that's why he passes her off as a sister later on in Gerar when he goes there in chapter, I think it's the next chapter, 26. And of course, Laban the Syrian is mentioned here. because Laban features pretty much in upcoming days with Jacob when he has to run away from Isaac. From Esau, because he wants to murder him for taking his blessing. And it says that Isaac entreated the Lord for his wife because she was barren. And the Lord was entreated of him, and Rebekah, his wife, conceived. So what I see here, this is what stuck out to me. I think it's a good topic, is that Isaac prays to the Lord directly. He's not praying through the name of his father like the servant did in the prior chapter when he was looking for a wife for Isaac. He prayed to the God of my master Abraham, which gives us a big clue. When the servant was praying like that in 24, praying through a name, it shows that man needs to have a name to access God with. Now, the reason why Abraham could be used successfully by the servant was because God had appeared to Abraham when he was 70 years old in Ur the Chaldees and called him out of his nation and his kindred and family, father's household, to go to Canaan. And God appeared to him and dealt with him 10 different times. So God's initiative in Abraham's life to select Abraham as his man who's going to be the prototype of all people of faith later, continuing, because we're called children of Abraham. Abraham became a acceptable name to God. Now, for us, Isaac represents Jesus as a type. Now, Jesus does not need to talk to God the Father through anybody's name. And that's what Isaac's prayer represents. He is able to talk to God directly, the Lord, right? Without using the name of his father Abraham, who is still alive at this time when Isaac is 40, because when he's 40 years old, then Abraham has another 35 years of life left. Okay. So he's not praying in the name of a dead man. He could pray in the name of Abraham, but he doesn't. And that's the point I'm making. Now, so God listened to him. Now, the reason why he prayed is because she was barren. Now, Rebekah being a type of the people of God, the church, people of God, we are barren like she is unless our husband, which is Christ, prays for us. Remember what Jesus said directly to his apostles in John 17. He said, without me you can do nothing. If you detach from me as the vine, you will wither. But Isaac and Rebekah are one flesh. And this idea of one flesh is used by the Apostle Paul in chapter 5 of Ephesians to talk about what he's talking about, husbands and wives. He references Christ and the church in the same way. So, let me put it this way, your productivity as a Christian, if you do anything of value as a Christian, it's because Christ prays for you, just as Isaac prays for Rebekah. I hope that's clear. So now she has conceived. Now let's look at the answer to Isaac's prayer and see what happens, which is very kind of surprising if you think about how you think it would go. If you pray to God, things should go swimmingly well after that. When you get saved, your life should go swimmingly well, like a paradise unfolding for your future on earth, right? That's what you think. That's what you might think. And I'll tell you something, that's the picture I got when I was first converted. Now, thankfully, it didn't stick with me hard enough for me to stay with it. But I got this sense now that you get all these perks from being a Christian. Now, of course, I was new and I was being influenced by charismatic theology at the time, which was all about miracles and all kinds of things like that. In other words, an unfolding paradox. But look what happens with Rebekah. I mean, I got away from that over time because of reality. That's what it is, reality. I understand people want a good time. They want a pleasant time from God because God's the author of all things that are good, right? Well, so it follows that all things should never, everything that God does should always be trouble-free. But Rebekah found out something different. And the children struggled together within her. And to the point where this must have been painful. I'm sorry, this must have been pretty painful. I think in the second trimester forward, they had enough, development to be able to go at each other. In my opinion, I think Jacob started it because he has a hold of the heel later on. But that's just an opinion. But I'm not going to hold to it. They struggled together within her, back and forth. And she said, if it be so, that is, if this be an answer to prayer, why am I thus? Who hasn't asked that question? If this is God in my life, how come my life is like this? Wow. And I think this is on a spectrum. I don't think it's always really, really bad for everybody. Sometimes it is. Lazarus the beggar never got anything, never got a break. Where is he today? Right, in paradise. Now, where's the rich man who got all the breaks? In hell, he can't get one of them back. I mean, it's tragic. But this is how life can be. This world is crazy. This world is evil. And it's just the way it is. I mean, so she's saying, oh, I can't take this. This is terrible. Remember what Jesus said in the parable of the sower. Affliction arises for the word's sake. Affliction and or persecution arises for the word's sake. That's what happened. If you read anything about martyrs in the world, like people who are converted in Muslim land or communist lands or Hindu areas, they may not survive. Sudan is a horror for Christians. Southern Sudan. It's terrible. It's run by Muslim overlords, and they go after Christians like crazy. It's horrible over there. They could use your prayer. Why is it like it for them if they're saved? You see what I mean? And she went to inquire of the Lord. This is, again, same thing with Isaac. Now we have a woman accessing the Lord directly. Why? Because she is married to Isaac and they're one flesh. You are one flesh with Christ. You're one spirit. You're one spirit with Christ. But the one flesh union that marriage talks about in Genesis 2:24 is applied to Christ and the church spiritually. Christ married a nation. Didn't John the Baptist call him the bridegroom? He's the fulfillment of Isaac. Rebekah is the people of God. He came into his own received them not, though. So she has access to God. You can go to the throne of grace and receive mercy and grace to help you in a time of need. This is what that's for. And it's noticed that she inquires because she's in trouble. I'm sorry, and this is just the way we are. I mean, I'm like that, you're like that, everybody's like that. Maybe there's some who aren't. But I don't know. But it seems that unless a person's in trouble, having difficulty, they don't really reach out to God fervently at all. They just don't. And God knows that. It takes trouble to bring someone to him. And even Isaac took 20 years to pray for his wife. That's quite something. David took 3 years to pray about a famine when it was in his land, during his reign, So that was another thing. Men typically don't pray much. Women are more likely because women understand dependency, men don't. So men have to be rendered dependent before they start looking up to God. But the thing is, God wants us to pray always. That's what we're told. To pray always. Not just when you're in trouble. But because God chastens us this way. And the thing with her is that the answer that the Lord gives her shows you why there seems to be a trade-off between two different items, which is struggle and greatness. Because what the Lord tells her is, 2 nations are in your womb. Again, that's like what Hagar got told. Hagar got told that Ishmael, when she was pregnant and ran away from Sarah way back in chapter 16, she ran away from Sarah, and she's all upset because of the harsh treatment she was getting. And the Lord told her that he would make of her child that she was carrying a great nation that you couldn't even number. I mean, this is a mother's, dream, I guess, is to have an important person as your child. It's like, so here we have the same thing. 2 nations are in your womb. That's what's going on. And 2 manner of people shall be separated from your bowels, from your abdomen. And 1 people shall be stronger than the other. I mean, she's getting this panorama of history unfolding in front of her. Now, whether that helps with the pain at all, I don't necessarily think so, but it changed her attitude for what was happening in her. Like, to her, it's just two children coming out. But here's 2 nations coming out. 2 different kinds of people coming out. Strong people and weaker people. And the elder shall serve the younger. And this is the only one of the 4 statements that the Lord makes where he specifies one boy over the other. The rest of them are kind of generic. They don't identify either one. But the 4th one does. The older boy will be servant of the younger one. And that's interesting. As a matter of fact, Paul uses that, the elder shall serve the younger, in chapter 9, talking about election and God's choice of people. Before they did anything good or bad, the elder will serve the younger. Which seems to be kind of a punishment or something like that, or a chastisement. Not really sure. I mean, it doesn't have to be that, but the fact is there's a choice being made between the 2 of them. And the thing about it is, the struggle she's having, the difficulty she's having, is being offset by a weight of glory. Because that's what we have in Romans. Let's go to Romans here. Okay. Romans chapter 8, sorry, not 8, not 9, but 8. Let's go down to verse 18. For I reckon, means consider, that the sufferings of this present time, Rebekah is suffering with the pregnancy, are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us. Take Rebekah's pregnancy. Pregnancies have a limited time, 9 months. Pregnancies end. Your sufferings end. You're not always going to be like it. Okay? You're just not. And you can't really compare the two as being, like, even though they're different and there's a trade-off, the sufferings become much less weighty in comparison to the glory being revealed. Here's what's happening in our lives. We are being transformed into the image of Christ. That's the work. And God is taking our sinful clay and working with it and changing us from glory to glory as we reach out in our struggles. Rebekah's reaching out in her struggle. You should be too. This whole life is a struggle. Even if you're having a relatively good time in this life right now, notice I use the word relatively, because things might ease off, things might be pretty good overall, but no one is ever completely free of trouble. That's just life. So no matter what, if your struggle is great or not so much, it's still a struggle. It's still a suffering. The fact that we're dying is enough of a suffering that this is being compared to. Jesus said, unless a kernel of wheat fall on the ground, it remains alone. But if it dies, it brings forth much fruit. So in suffering, there's always kind of a death going on in you. Because one thing, we're losing our sense of earthly happiness because it's fading away with every struggle. But it should not be only that. Rebekah's being told something great is happening inside of her. Something great is happening inside of you. Because, why? Look what it says in 8:28. And we know that all things, think about the suffering, work together for the good to them that love God and to them who are called according to his purpose. Remember what it says in Hebrews 12. Same thing. There's always a chastisement going on in our lives because it's necessary. Look at what we are without Jesus. From verse 5 down to 13, I'm not going to read the whole thing. It talks about the value of God's chastening. How it produces the peaceable fruit of righteousness to them that are exercised by it. You're being trained through your chastisements and your struggles to become transformed to the image of Christ. And that comes through prayer. The image of Christ comes through prayer and following his word. To follow and do his word. Those two things work together. So Rebekah is coming out like Hagar, being told that something's happening in her, that this struggle, once it's over with, won't be remembered. That's what Jesus said. A woman, when she's in labor, she's in pain, but when the child is born for joy, she has joy at the birth of the child. And the pain is now set aside. So let's go through these times with faith. Don't lose your faith. Don't blame God. Don't curse God. Don't be angry with God about things. Because that's the flesh, that's satanic. But be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Because you're being transformed into the image of Christ. There's a great thing happening in you. God bless you in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.